Hey everybody, this is beccatownsims. Welcome to my channel. It's been a while since I uploaded because I just moved and I did not prepare any videos in advance because I don't got that kind of time on my hands. I do have to. Yeah, so this is Greenbriar. This is a very, very green Victorian. It's not really a mansion. It's like a Victorian house, but it looks like it should have mansion proportions, but it does not. It's like two very tiny bedrooms. Anyways, I put this in Glimmerbrook, and I feel like the lighting in Glimmerbrook when I was building was also very green. So the screenshots are like green to the max. So this house, I was thinking when I built it that, and I didn't decorate it like this because, I don't know, I got the inside a little bit generic, but I was thinking that it would be like the perfect house for like a lady scientist, like an archaeologist or maybe a botanist, like a lady who had a cool garden. It doesn't have to be a lady, I just had a lady in mind. So when I was thinking about what to talk about for this video, I remembered this trailer for a movie called Ammonite. It's got Kate Winslet and Saoirse Ronan in it, and I have not seen it. I only saw the trailer, but it is about I guess you could call her a paleontologist named Mary Anning, and that lady sounds pretty cool. So I'm just gonna do a little history chat about her because I think that that kind of sim with that sort of same energy that I think Mary Anning might have had would be a good addition to this house. So she was born to a family that was like super down on their luck, my friends. All right, so Mary Anning was born in 1799. Her dad was a cabinet maker and he had a little side hustle, and his side hustle was selling fossils. So they lived in this town on the English coast, British coast. I don't know when to use the word British and when to use the word English. I'm so sorry. Laura, my friend, if you watch this, please help me out. I think British Isles, England is just the one country. Anyways, I'm on a tangent. Anyway, she lived in this town, Lyme Regis, I believe is what it's called. And it's got a lot of cool fossil-y stuff because there's some limestone cliffs and apparently you can find some really dope fossils there. And by the 1800s, when Mary was a child, people were already coming to this town, and so people like her dad would collect fossils by walking along the beach, and then they would sell them as curios to the tourists who came into town. Kind of like my town, there's a lot of curios here. I also like the word curios. It's fun. Anyways, so Mary's family actually had 10 kids, but only 2 of them lived into adulthood, and it's so tragic. But I'm gonna tell you because you just gotta know how things was back then. Just get a little context. This family, like I said, was down on their luck. So 10 kids. They had like a daughter named Mary before Mary was born, but she died as a baby. She was like 2 years old, 4 years old or something, and she caught on fire and like burned because they, you know, kids, old-timey clothes and stoves, and the mom apparently turned around for just a few minutes and the baby caught on fire, which is tragic. And of the 10 kids, only Mary and her brother Joseph lived to adulthood. Like, can you imagine? The mortality rate was out of control back then. And I almost forgot to mention this actually, but Mary herself almost died when she was a baby. I read this story about how she was being held by some ladies. They were near a tree. They were watching, I don't know, some kind of old-timey sports ball game. So horses. It had to have been horses. Horse show? I don't know. Not gonna check my sources. So Mary's grown-up lady pals were watching this thing, and lightning struck the tree they were standing by, and 3 women died, including the one who was holding little baby Mary. I think she was maybe 2, maybe younger than that, and she miraculously survived. The Wikipedia entry said that they revived her in warm water at home, so I guess she passed out. I mean, anyways, so baby Mary survived a lightning strike, so that's pretty badass, honestly. But anyways, Mary did live to adulthood, and her brother Joseph did too. And so when they were kids, they would go out with her dad, fossil hunting. They'd walk along the shores, and he'd be like, "Hey kids, this is where you find the good fossils." And they'd be like, "Thank you, Pops." That's how they talked in the 1800s. Look it up. Read a book. Okay, so yeah, her dad didn't live that long, unfortunately. Like many people of the 1800s, he had tuberculosis, or as it was known back then, consumption. And I will say that Victorian literature, no shade to my parents, pretty much raised me. And I was always like, what is consumption? I thought maybe cancer, but no, it's tuberculosis. And I 100% thought as a child that I had it because I was coughing all the time and always had these sinus issues that were definitely caused by pollen and not by consumption. Anyhow, her dad had that, and he also fell off a cliff because fossil hunting was super dangerous. Because you were on cliffs, dude, and the medicine back then was bad. And I mean, even medicine now, if you fall off a cliff, like, hit or miss. So he fell off a cliff. He died not too long after, and he left the family in a lot of debts. Like I said before, they were poor people, and the whole country was kind of in a bad situation at the time because of the Napoleonic Wars and some other economic stuff that I don't know that much about. And they were also religious dissenters, so they, didn't go with that churchly flow, and kind of suffered disadvantages because of their non-conformity. So they were left with a lot of debts when he died, and Mary and her brother kind of took over the fossil stuff. She eventually became the lead of the family fossil business, but she and her brother had a pretty important find. When she was only 12 years old, they found can't say this word, Ichthyosaurus skull, like a really big one. It was really fascinating for people because you gotta remember, they didn't know much about like the dinosaurs or the prehistoric times back then. People were finding fossils, and everybody was super religious, so they were like, the earth is only 4,000 years old, there couldn't possibly be dinosaurs. So confusing time for people, and fossils were becoming popular. Paleontology as a field was emerging, and the skull made the news, it was trending on TikTok. I'm young, kids. So Mary and her family kind of got some fame from that. They were talked about widely. Mary advised a lot of people on paleontology. But still, their finances were up and down. At some point, they almost lost their house and all their furniture because they were so poor. And so they were helped out by a neighbor / an admirator who organized an auction to benefit them, selling a lot of the fossils that he'd got from them. And that also really helped to raise their international profile. So people would come visit Mary. They'd ask her about fossils. She'd give advice. And then these men, and it was men, would rip her off and not give her credit for the things that they learned from her. And her name did not appear in many museums or anything because when people donated the fossils, they would just talk about the rich guy who donated them and not the poor woman who almost died on the cliffs to find them. Side note, she did almost die in a landslide on the cliffs because it was all wet and crumbly, and it actually killed her dog. So that kind of gives you an idea of how dangerous it was. And although she was kind of famous, like I said, she didn't really have any scientific acclaim until much later in her life. So now you hear about her, now some things are named after her. But in her lifetime, her fame was really just kind of like word of mouth and people who would come to town and visit her shop and talk about her. So she sounds really interesting to me. I have not seen the movie. I have heard that it is not historically accurate. I do know that there's several other things written about Mary that you can read. I read in a YouTube comment somewhere that the tongue twister "She Sells Seashells by the Seashore" was written about her, but I don't think that's true, but I'm telling you anyways, so let me spread some disinformation. So hopefully you liked reading about her and hearing about her contributions to this, early paleontology science, and look her up, do some more reading. She unfortunately died really young. She was only 47. It was breast cancer. But her discoveries kind of lived on, and she contributed many other fossils that sort of shaped the way we see life from the Jurassic era today. So hope you enjoyed this video. The build's called Greenbriar. If you like it, if you like me, subscribe to my channel. My name is beccatownsims. You can find me here, Twitch and Instagram under the same name. And thanks for watching. Hope to see you back again sometime.